I'm supposed to, but I've been quite busy dealing with the snow. I don't know if you can see it out there, but it's snowing right now. We got about a foot of snow, which is about, a foot is like, what, a quarter of a meter or something? Which is yeah, something like that. Which is about a foot of extra inches that we don't normally get. So this is very exciting. The whole city is shut down. Anyway, so I'm going to talk to you all about PowerShell and VS Code. For starters, you can see my screen all right?
Yeah, we can see it just fine.
Beautiful. All right. So this is me. I'm on Twitter and GitHub as my name, @TylerLeonhardt. And something that I've been doing more in the recent times is streaming on Twitch, and been live streaming and that sort of thing. And in fact, there's a pretty big PowerShell community who have started streaming on Twitch. And if you want to go check them out, you could go look at twitch.tv/PowerShell Live. What this account will do is host whoever is on a list of PowerShell streamers, and you'll get to watch them code, and you can bother them in chat and whatever you want to do. It's a great way to kind of see how people go about their like thought process. And also, honestly, from a streamer's perspective, it's great just having an extra set of eyes on some code. I've definitely like hit my head against my desk many times trying to figure something out, and someone on stream was like, "Oh wait, you missed a semicolon there," or something like that. But anyway, so go check that out if you're interested. And if you're interested in streaming as well, there's a bunch of really awesome guides out there. It's really easy to get started, in my opinion. And I think it really does help the community as a whole. Let me get rid of this. Cool. All right, so Visual Studio Code. So I've been told that a lot of you already know what VS Code is, but for those of you that don't, Visual Studio Code is not to be confused with Visual Studio. I don't know why they named them so similarly. Seems like a bit of a marketing mess up in my opinion, but Visual Studio Code is the free open source and lightweight text editor that Microsoft put out, and it has a bunch. It's really extensible, and today we're going to be talking about the PowerShell extension, which I'm very happy to see the PowerShell extension is on that screenshot. That's really cool. This is pulled right from the VS Code website. Anyway, what else? Agenda, right. So basically the format of this talk was that I have like a long list of things. Pulling out my notebook here, I have like this crazy long list of things to discuss, and it's just like a bunch of awesome features in VS Code and in the PowerShell extension. And if you have any questions that you have, feel free to like stop me and ask me them. I'm just gonna keep going down this list and until I either run out or Yop tells me to stop talking. So without further ado, let's get into what I have here.
Okay, that was enough, I'm going to have to cut you off right here.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to you all, and I'll see you all later. All right, so we've got, let's see, a bunch of things. I should have just clicked through all of these. We've got how to customize VS Code, script analyzer, Pester and Plaster integrations, making your own editor commands, and we'll go into what that is in a second, remote editing and debugging, and also how to open issues and how to give us feedback so that we can fix any issues that you do have. All right, those are all my slides. Now it's time to get into the fun stuff. I don't want to deal with this. Go away. All right, we'll just put that away for a sec. Ooh, Zoom is quite beefy, isn't it? Okay. So let me open up this thing, this project real quick. So I'm going to open up this PowerShell module that I work on called Polaris. It's a PowerShell module for making very simple HTTP web servers. And the first thing we're going to take a look at is, well, first, typically in presentations, I hear you're supposed to switch over to a light theme. So let's go ahead and change the theme real quick. So for those of you who are familiar with a certain throwback editor, I could switch over here to the PowerShell ISE theme and have something that looks a little bit more like the old color theme. Yeah, people usually like that one because it's much more familiar looking. But there are just tons of themes, and you can like install whatever additional themes you want from the extension marketplace. But let's stick with the ISE theme for now. So another big thing that I get from a lot of people is when you select a line of code here and hit F8, just as you did in the ISE, a lot of people were upset that the cursor would end up down here in the terminal rather than staying with the code itself. I'm not sure if that came out the right way, but you can change that if you'd like. There's a preference. If you go into the settings of VSCode, you can actually dig into the PowerShell configuration, and then there should be, I'm going to try to just scroll through this real quick. Otherwise, I'll just, here it is. Focus console and execute. And if you check this box, what that'll allow you to do is select this and hit F8. And once that's finished running, you'll notice that the, oh, geez, I guess it was still down there. I might have to restart the extension after doing that. So if we do, so for starters, I should add something before that. The in Visual Studio Code, the command palette is kind of king. It has all of the different commands that you could possibly want to run in a very easily accessible menu. And to open that, I got some emails apparently. Wow, they are all just flooding in. Sorry about that. Anyway, to access the command palette, all you have to do is Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P if you're on a Mac like I am. And that's how I was able to change the color before. So let me go ahead and restart the PowerShell extension. And to do that, there's a command called PowerShell Restart Current Session. And so if you have any issues, you just feel like you need to restart the extension, it's a very easy way to go ahead and do that. And I have a feeling that my machine here is going to be chugging along through this presentation. So I apologize for that in advance. So
we'll get to hear more of you, so that's perfect.
So let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure entirely why that isn't working as intended. It's probably due to just the slowness of my machine at the moment. But take my word for it. If you apply that setting, you should be good to go, which is probably a good way to transition into something I was going to talk about later, which is opening issues. So if you ever run into any problems with the extension, it's really simple to open an issue on GitHub where the project lies, so that we can see the problems you're having and address them as soon as we can. So to do that, you could just open up the command palette and type PowerShell, and then type bug, PowerShell bug. And there's a command action here called upload bug report to GitHub. And when I run that, it's actually just going to open my browser for me, and include a bunch of different environment information without you having to do all that work. So you can see it tells me what version of PowerShell I'm using, what platform I'm on, and what other extensions I have installed, everything. Like all of that detail is right there waiting for you to just hit submit new issue. The only thing that we ask is, one, you provide us with a decent description of the issue that you're having, a title, and then all you have to do is right here, attach the logs. And to do that, it's quite simple. Switch over to VSCode real quick. You can open up the command palette again and then type PowerShell logs. All right. And this top one here, open PowerShell extension logs folder. And that's going to open another instance of VSCode. And it's got this weird folder name. And if we open these in Explorer or whatever, we can take that folder, zip it up, and then paste it right in that issue. Compress. So do that. Now I have my zip. And if I go right to GitHub, I could just paste that in. Hello? Maybe I copied it wrong. Or I could drag it in as well. That should do. Yeah, there it goes. And so that is the best way for giving us feedback, because we can dig through those logs, see what the problem is, and address it as we can. The one thing I do ask is that you apply this setting called, I usually search for diagnostic here, but spelled correctly. Here it is. The editor services log level. And by setting that to diagnostic, that's going to give us even more information of what's been going on with your system. So I usually ask people to set it to diagnostic before attaching those logs so that we can get a better sense for what's going on. It really does help. Anyway, so let's go ahead and take a look at the script analyzer integration. Now, for those of you that don't know what script analyzer is, it's basically PowerShell's linter, if you're familiar with what a linter is, and it just gives you all the green and red squigglies of, you should be doing this instead of this. It's the style cop, the FX cop, that sort of thing. And so right here we see it's kind of microscopic. Should I zoom in a bit?
Bigger.
Yeah. How's that?
Oh, is that in the back?
Bigger.
I hear bigger.
You got it.
Yeah, you always want bigger.
Oh, is this better, guys?
How's that?
Look at the smiling faces now, Tyler.
Let me see. Hey, there they are. Okay. Yeah, so right here, there's a little squiggly. And if I hover over it, it says that % is an alias of for each object, and that you should avoid using aliases in scripts and modules because it's hard to maintain. If you were to give that script to someone else and they're not familiar with the aliases that are set up, it can be tricky for them to maintain that script. So typically in scripts and modules, we advise people to write the full commandlet name for readability's sake. So this is something that Script Analyzer does to say, hey, you should probably be better here. I believe there's a whole bunch of other ones too. For example, I set this variable to 5 here, and I get the variable foo is assigned but never used. You should do something about that. And so, these are it's a small thing, but it helps you write cleaner, more maintainable scripts and modules. And so one of the things that you could do to kind of extend this is Script Analyzer itself has this concept of a config file. I'm going to switch over to my browser real quick to show you. But if we go down here to the bottom, yeah, Settings, Support, and Script Analyzer. There's something called a PS Script Analyzer settings file. It's PS Script Analyzer settings.psd1. And it gives you the ability to exclude rules, include certain rules that you want to include, the whole 9 yards, really. It really gives you a lot of power in configuring what you want for script analysis. So in this repo, we have a settings file, but I deleted it just so that you could see this this squiggle here, because in this project we allow you to use %. So I'm just going to revert that deletion here. This module is on GitHub, so I have the Git integration right into VSCode, which is nice. So you can see that I deleted this file. That's what the D stands for. And I can revert that to bring that file back. And what we'll see is, if I just type a little bit, that squiggle actually goes away. Because I now have this Script Analyzer settings file where I say the rules, PS avoid using command aliases, and then I have a whitelist of aliases that I'm okay with. So that's a really nice way to configure Script Analyzer to do what you want it to do. And all you have to do is drop that Script Analyzer settings file right into your directory of your module, and then VS Code knows to pick that up and use that for analysis in the future. It's really nice. So Script Analyzer is also the culprit for formatting. So one of the things that you can do, and I've not run this on this file particularly, is there's a command palette action called format document. And if I run that, I don't know if it's going to actually change anything. So maybe let me try to force it to happen. Maybe I'll do something like this. See if that'll work. Hello? There we go. So, I have I have format on save turned on already. So there's a setting. Sorry about that. There's a setting in VS Code called format on save, which is curious that I don't have it turned on by default, but yet it's being invoked. It could possibly be a VS Code insiders issue, which is like VS Code preview. You can go and get that. They have daily updates of VS Code, but there might be a bug there. But you get the idea that when I hit save here, it adds some extra space to this, and that's Script Analyzer helping with formatting. I've definitely seen some cases where people have run this, and it's just taken this mangled looking script and just turned it into something that looks really nice. So give that a go and see how it goes for you. So that's more or less the things I wanted to touch on for script analysis. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. I don't want to skip over anything. But if not, we'll go ahead and move over to Pester.
Let me you, Tyler.
Does anyone have a question for Tyler on Script Analyzer?
No, pretty clear.
They're still awake, but they think you explained it too clear.
Great. So let's go ahead and move into Pester. So I would say, as a show of hands, let's see, I can kind of see you all. So as a show of hands, who knows what Pester is? Awesome. Great. So you're all pretty familiar with Pester. So VSCode, the PowerShell extension, VSCode has a Pester integration. So what that means is that, let me go to one of my Pester tests over here. This has test directory, and I will go to, let's go to this one here. And so what you see here is I have my describe, my before all, my its, et cetera, but I have this little bit of like this code lens happening here, and it's pretty nice. So what I can do here is I can just hit this run test button, and what that's going to do in the fullness of time is run my tests right down below for me without having to type invoke script analyzer. And that's only going to run this describe block. My understanding is that in the next major version of Pester, they will add like the ability to pass in a specific it block that you want to run, and when that does happen, we'll be able to add that feature to the PowerShell extension. But until then, it's just at the describe level. But what you can also do is debug these tests. So, for example, let me go ahead and maybe throw a breakpoint over here. I've got the little breakpoint gutter over here. I'll drop a breakpoint here, and I'll hit debug tests. And so what this will do is it'll say, I've hit this line breakpoint, and this is kind of unreadable in in the blue console, but it says that I've hit this breakpoint right here, and it stopped execution of my script at this point. And so what I can do here is, for example, I can type name to see what this name is, and it's test middleware. And I can also see on the left here different variable names and stuff like that. So it's really helpful for figuring out, if you have a test failure, what's going on here. Reassign this variable, for example. Sorry, my machine is just like slowing down. Here, I'll change it over here. Foo. Oh, wow. Sorry, VSCode has come to a halting stop. Or maybe it's just my machine in general, honestly. Okay, let me just hit continue. Let's see what happens.
He's actually streaming on a different computer.
Oh, okay. He's streaming on the real computer.
All right, let me restart this. So I guess while this is happening, yeah, I am streaming this call at the moment. It's being streamed on my machine over here because that would be way too much for this one little machine to handle. But yeah, you can find that on my Twitch channel right now. It's twitch.tv/Tyler Leonhardt. So, all right, let's try this again. So I will run that debug tests button. Hit the breakpoint, change the name, for example. And then what we should see is when I hit continue that test is going to fail because we got full. We expected foo, but got null. Interesting. Yeah, because it was trying to get the. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, so that test failed because we changed that that name variable. Sorry.
She thought it was funny that you're debugging your own code live.
Yeah. So another cool Pester thing that I saw out in the wild is how many of you use the code coverage feature in Pester? You ever messed with that at all? Well, it's great. So code coverage, for those of you that don't know, means how much of my actual code does do my tests cover. So here we could see that this test tests this particular commandlet and this one as well. So if we were to run some code coverage on this, we would see that this test this code did get executed, and this did as well. But something else might not. And typically, what you associate code coverage with is the percentage. You want to be at 70% code coverage or 80% code coverage, meaning that you have 80% of your actual code covered in your tests. So something that I saw on the wild recently was this integration with VSCode and Pester's code coverage. So there's this extension that you can install in VSCode called the VSCode coverage gutters. And gutters in VSCode are, let's see if I can get one to happen. Maybe I just delete this. It's right here. There's this little this tiny little line right next to the line numbers. This is what's called the gutter. And so what they've done here in this blog post is that they've gotten the Pester code coverage capabilities to work with this extension. Now, I haven't given this a chance to try it out myself, and I won't get to it too much because we've got a lot of stuff to cover. But just wanted to touch on it, that this is something that you can check out. It's really easy to invoke the code coverage feature in Pester. You just grab your PS1s and then you pass it over to the invoke Pester code coverage. And I'll zoom in a little bit because it's probably very difficult to see. And so then this command will generate this XML, and then that extension that I mentioned will be watching that XML file, and then it will display little gutters of what part of your code is covered by your tests and what isn't. This is a little GIF to show how that works. It's really nice, honestly. I was so amazed to see this, because actually one of the first things that I wanted to do when I joined this team and started working on this project was add a similar feature to the PowerShell extension, and I'm very happy because I like to see things outside of the PowerShell extension be applied to PowerShell, and so this was really cool for me to see. So take a look at that if you're interested. I think it's really cool personally. All right, so next thing I want to talk to, if there are no questions. All right, cool. Either I'm doing a really great job or a really bad job. So I'm going to keep going anyway until Jaap tells me to stop again. So thank you. What's that?
Never doubt yourself.
Oh, thanks. So the next thing I'm going to speak to are editor commands. So editor commands are exactly what we've been seeing the whole time when we open up the command palette. That's these guys. So one thing that we added to the PowerShell extension is the ability to write PowerShell script blocks and PowerShell modules that will get invoked when a certain action is done in the command palette. A certain editor command is triggered. So I have a neat little example. I'm going to close out of this one and this one. All right. Okay, so I have this PS1. It's called register convert to snippet editor command. quite verbose name, to be honest, but there's a particular line of code I want to call out here, and that's right here. Register editor command. So how this works is, there we go. You write this, this line here, register editor command, give it a name, a display name, some helpful text, and a script block, and all the contents inside of it. And what this will do is allow it to show up here in the command palette. So I'm going to write I'll write a fresh one just so that you can see a simple example. Register editor. Sorry, my machine is just chugging along. There we go. Name, call it PowerShell dot, what is it, Dutch PowerShell User Group. And we will do display name as hello world. Or where, how do I spell the city that you're in? Is that right, or is it AN?
That was correct.
EN. There we go.
Perfect.
And then we'll put a script block here, and we could do like, let's do this. We will do, there's a secret object here called PS editor, and what you could do with this is, let's go to the window property, and we will do we'll show an information message, and we will call it, I don't know, hello. Good. Okay. I think that's it. So if we run this, I'll just run it down with F8. There's a command palette action called show additional commands from PowerShell modules, which is going to give us a list. And we see right there that that one shows up. And if I hit enter, a little information message pops up here. So, you know, this is a very simple example, of course, but, you know, as long as you can write it in a PowerShell script block, you have access to that. So personally, I think it's a fun way to kind of integrate your editor with PowerShell. So this example that I'm showing you here, what this does is, I'll run it really quickly, is what I'm able to do is select a line of code here. Or let me preface this with, do you all know what a snippet is? The idea is you can have a predefined like snippet of code. So for example, I'll do like commandlet, and I have this little item here, and it will show you what that is. And if I trigger that one, it gives me this snippet of code here. So what this function does is when I highlight something here and I run my editor command, convert to VSCode snippet, it will pop open a little dialog here. What do you want to call your snippet? Let's call it, all right. And then there's some other questions to answer to make it a little bit more robust, but we don't need to do anything like that. It will give you this little page here, and it'll tell you that you could place this snippet inside of a .code snippets file, and you'll be able to easily use that snippet of code right in VS Code. So this is a more advanced example of how you could use editor commands. I think they're a lot of fun personally, but yeah. Let's see. Right. So there's a module out in the wild that some of you might have heard about. It's called Editor Services Command Suite. And what it is a collection of these editor commands. So I've installed it. All it is a PowerShell module. So get Let me zoom in so you can actually see this. Oh, wow. Okay. There we go. List, editor, services. Services command suite. You can get it on the PowerShell gallery, and all you have to do is install it just as you would any other module with install module, and then if you import it, editor services command suite, there's another command that is exposed here called import editor command, and you can specify a module, which we will specify editor services command suite. And what that's going to do is give us a ton of these editor commands. And my favorite, personally, is, let me select this invocation. And it's, it's got 3 parameters here. So, and it's a bit long. Like if I had this open, it's almost off the screen. So it would be nice if we could just turn this into a splat. So one of the things that this module can do is take the selection and it will convert it into a splatted invocation instead. Because we all love splat more than we like backticks. Is that right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So this is just the coolest thing to me. Apparently my markdown extension decided to freak out. But yeah, this is a module. It's by Patrick Seemingly Science. Got the link here. Called Editor Services Command Suite. And if you go to the GitHub page, it'll tell you everything that you need to do. Even a one-liner on how to add it to your profile so that you can have those commands loaded every time. All right, got about 5 or so minutes left. Let's talk about this might hurt my machine a bunch, but I'm going to try to do some remote editing and debugging. So one of the things that we have available to us in PowerShell is enter PS session, right? It allows us to remote from our machine to another machine. So what you can do in the extension is if you enter PS session while in the integrated console, I'm going to remote to this machine I have in Azure here. Excuse me. Be sure to copy down that IP so you can try to steal it from me. And then I'll put in the username here. This is all pretty standard stuff. I'm using hostname here because this is going from a Mac to a Linux VM, and for that, the recommendation is to use SSH PowerShell remoting. But the same would work for WSMan or whatever. So let me do this, enter PS session. I just realized that username is wrong. Let me try this again. Azure user, there we go. Yeah, sorry, won't be able to see my password.
Oh, people were very disappointed.
Yep, I don't blame them. But anyway, it's kind of difficult to see here, but I've got the IP. I've now remoted into that machine, and let's see. We can take a look at what's on this machine. I've got a few scripts. So another thing that we could do is use the open editor file command, and it has an alias called psedit. And if I do psedit foo.ps1, it will open that foo.ps1 right in my editor. right from this remote box. You know, this is acting as if this file was local on my machine. So from here, we can do anything that we would normally do with files. So I can place some breakpoints, for example, and I could do some debugging as well. So I will hit F5. And we see that the breakpoint gets hit just like that. I can step over. There we go. Reset food is something else if I wanted to. And then continue. And we see that that gets printed out. You know, this is great because it's like we're treating these remote files as if they were local, and that has just immense value. Yeah, so I only have a few minutes left. I think what I'll do now is, you know, there were a couple of other things that I wanted to mention, but like I said, I was expecting to just have way too much content. So I guess if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. In general, it can be about VS Code, it can be about PowerShell, whatever.
Tyler?
Yeah.
We also have a giveaway. So
oh, okay.
You are in charge of that. I of course communicated this to you beforehand.
Oh,
so,
yes, of course. I do recall us talking about that.
Absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll rotate the camera and you'll just shout out the color of the shirt or the person, any kind of description. No pressure. And they'll get the gift. And before we do that, what we got a pair of socks.
Oh, nice.
So it's not as cold in Holland as it is in Seattle, but still, I think people need socks, right?
That's true.
Cool. So I'll start spinning the camera.
I saw blue.
You saw blue?
Yeah. Is it blue or purple?
Blue or
in
purple?
The very back.
The very back.
Oh, that's you.
Okay, raise your hand. This person?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right then. Would you like some socks?
Something called red. That's nice.
Excellent. So, does anyone have a question for Tyler before he drops off the call? Anything? Yeah. We have Koen in the back.
Really stupid one. Do you have a quick way to get IntelliSense back if it stops working, apart from restarting the bloody implementation?
So it depends.
You're such a consultant.
It's I mean it's difficult to know what the cause was of why the IntelliSense stopped working for you, and you know, without like seeing a repro in front of me, it would be hard for me to just say, oh yeah, just do this thing. Besides the one thing that you already mentioned, which is using that command palette action to restart restart the session, or like, you know, restarting it this way as well by like clicking on the green text over here and just restarting it. What I'd like is when you do experience that, please open an issue or find an issue that's related and add your logs to that, because that's going to help us a lot.
Okay. Sorry,
I don't have a better answer for you. It's tough to go off of.
It's something I overheard today as well, that people found VS Code less stable than ISE. I see another question in the back over there. Yep.
When you are in the terminal, normally you have a command history. You can put arrow up, arrow down. But when you're in debugging mode, somehow I can't access the history then of the previous commands I entered or variables I entered on the screen. Is this a known issue or?
Okay, yeah. So I think it kind of went in and out, but I think what you were asking about was about debug command history and why that doesn't show up. So I have good news. So that is a known issue. And the reason why it hasn't been fixed so far is that we wanted to do a larger work item, which is enabling PS readline support inside of the integrated console. Now, I am not gonna like lie to you and say that the integrated console as it is today is quite limited compared to the IC or compared to regular PowerShell. I can't disagree with that statement. But what we've been doing recently, and in fact, this is a great opportunity for me to plug the preview extension, is we've added PS readline support inside of the integrated console. And what that does give us is command history in when you're debugging. So that is fixed in this extension. And the reason we are releasing this as a preview so far is because the PS readline change, getting it to work in the integrated console, is a substantial work item. And the person who has really championed that effort is the same guy who did the editor services command suite. This guy, seemingly science. His name is Patrick. So let me show you that. I would love for you to give the preview a try. Because we would love to hear feedback on that. So VSCode Marketplace, or let me just do that within VSCode itself. So you can go over to the extensions here, and I could search PowerShell. And of course, I'm going to get PowerShell, the normal one. But there's also one called PowerShell Preview. And you can install this one as well. This is essentially going to be the PowerShell extension 2.0. That's the plan. So what you want to do is install this guy because this has PS readline support in it today. It's still a bit rough around the edges because it is preview. And unfortunately, PS readline support is only working on Windows today. But still, try it out, see what you think, and give us feedback. I would love to show it to you, but I'm on a Mac, so I don't really have that support available to me. But if you don't know what PS readline does, it's responsible for stuff like the syntax coloring in the console. It's responsible for multi-line editing. It's responsible for Control R, like back searching. All of the good console experiences are PS readline. So check it out.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll have to cut you off now because we're cutting into Erwin's time.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Please continue. So on behalf of DuPSUG, I would like to thank you, everyone. Can we give a hand for...
Cool. Thank you all so much for having me. I had a great time. Thanks.